Most harem comedies stay within very familiar territory. Whether the genre is fantasy, sci-fi, slice of life, or supernatural, common elements crop up again and again. Most primary protagonists are teenage boys living on their own. They're small or weak, and usually not attractive by traditional standards. They're bad with girls to the point of panic when forced into otherwise awesome encounters such as communal baths or the occasional accidental groping. Through contrived circumstances, they find themselves suddenly living with multiple girls who have the hots for them, but with a frustrating inability to act on those feelings. The girls themselves usually fall into the same personality types: the Tsundere, the Yandere, the childhood friend, the rich girl, the nerd. Despite whatever calamity is befalling the characters, be it day-to-day high school drama or over-the-top fights to the death using magic or sci-fi weaponry, each episode or chapter usually involves the same beats. The girls in the harem try to get with the boy, an awkward situation ensues, the boy panics, there's maybe some accidental groping, the boy or girl runs away, or the action is interrupted violently by the resident tsundere. Another recurring theme through most popular harem comedies is the protagonist never, ever, ever gets past mild groping or awkward petting. At the best, what usually awaits him at the end of a long manga run or 24-episode anime series is a single kiss with the main girl in the harem, often the first one introduced in the series. Indeed, these tropes are so ingrained in the harem comedy genre, it's difficult to find any that buck these trends. Which brings us to Ko Fumizuki's manga, Umi no Misaki. Umi no Misaki tells the story of Nagi Goto, a 17-year-old boy from Tokyo who returns to the island his late mother came from, the fictional Okitsushima in southern Japan. Upon his arrival, he meets Shizuku, a beautiful and friendly girl his own age. At his request, she takes him to Umi no Misaki, literally Cape of the Sea, a seaside cliff that offers a breathtaking view of the ocean, which Nagi always wanted to see because his mother would often talk about it. Shortly after their arrival, Nagi accidentally plunges from the cliff into the water, compelling Shizuku to dive after him and rescue. She drags Nagi from the sea and revives him with CPR. He thanks her, and the two part as friends. Later, Nagi arrives at his new home on Akitsu, only to learn his father's job will keep him away for the next few years. Nagi will not be alone, however, as his father made arrangements with the old woman next door, Oba, to keep an eye on him. She lives with her two grandchildren, Karin, who is Nagi's age, and Rene, her younger pubescent sister. Nagi's first interaction with Karin involves accidentally seeing her changing clothes from next door as she cluelessly stands in front of her living room's open window. Upon Rene's first meeting with Nagi, she runs from him in panic, before being the first of the island girls to express affection for him for reasons that don't become clear until much later in the series. The next day, Nagi attends Okitsu's single school where he meets his teacher, the vulgar and possibly alcoholic Kisagari, who he initially mistakes for a middle school student due to her height and youthful appearance. As Okitsu's population is small, Nagi shares his schooling with only 7 classmates, including, to his surprise, Shizuku, the pretty and friendly girl he met on his first day on the island. He greets her by her first name, which elicits surprise from the others in the class. Instead of the warm welcome he might have expected, Shizuku tells him she's never seen him before and not to talk to her. Later, Nagi is accosted by Soyogi, a spectacled athletic girl in his class who demands to know why he dared speak to a Shizuku. Bewildered and hurt, Nagi questions the wisdom of coming to Okitsu. Matters become clearer to Nagi when he attends an island ritual that night at the local shrine where he learns that Shizuku, Karin, and Soyogi are the 3 Cape Maidens, sacred island priestesses devoted to the worship of the dragon god, Okitsu's guardian deity. To his shock, Nagi is also informed by Oba that he is the physical reincarnation of the dragon god and that the Cape Maidens will be dedicating themselves to earning his favor, the clear implication of which is sexual relations. Nagi's protests fall on deaf ears as the girls take Oba's proclamation as gospel and begin their devotion to Nagi and his needs. Things start out slowly, with each girl spending some time alone with Nagi, but quickly escalate as each one falls madly in love with him. It is at this point Umi no Misaki becomes a teenage romance story as Nagi's individual relationships with the three girls blossom. Unlike most other harem mangas, there is no jealousy between the girls. Each sees the others as rivals, but each recognizes the other's needs, and they often work together to achieve the best results with Nagi. The manga maintains a comedic tone throughout, and it's easy to sympathize not only with Nagi, but each girl as well as they navigate the jungle of adolescent hormones leading to their sexual awakening. Surprisingly though, within the last 2 volumes, the story takes a very dark turn that seems to come out of nowhere, despite a few hints scattered here and there. This twist is handled well and doesn't detract from the lightheartedness that came before, but it's still disturbing for those of us who like harem comedies precisely because they usually avoid the grim stuff much adult manga contains. Nagi is not the typical harem protagonist. He's neither small nor weak, and actually well built for his age. He also recognizes the feelings the girls have for him, as well as his own, even to the point of chastising himself for not being more mature and taking charge in the relationships. His clumsiness around the girls is very realistic, and not played for the usual goofy laughs typical to the genre. Oddly enough, at the beginning of the series, his hair is drawn realistically, but by the last chapter looks like something out of Dragon Ball Z. The girls have very distinct personalities, and though some aspects feel typical of a harem comedy, they're different enough to feel refreshing. Tsundere and Yandere actions pop up, but none of the Cape Maidens can be locked down into any one role. Such archetypes are instead spent on secondary characters like the teacher or classmates. Shizuku, the Maiden of the Sea, is the most devoted to her priestess duties. She remains aloof, even toward those of her own age, and the only reason she was so friendly to Nagi at the beginning was she assumed he was an outsider and would never see her again. This brief moment of cheerfulness was due to her being allowed to be a typical teenage girl, if only for a few hours, a respite she usually only gets living vicariously through her extensive manga collection. It is this extreme commitment to being a Cape Maiden, going against her deep love of Nagi and the life she shares with the other maidens, that results in terrible actions taken late in the series. Harem, Maiden of Fire, at first seems like a tomboy, but that's mostly because she's the least feminine of the three, both in actions and in chest size. She feels the most insecure because up to Nagi's arrival, she had been mostly shirking her maiden duties, not seriously believing that the Dragon God would return in her lifetime. At first, she appears set to be the Tsundere of the manga, but this is surprisingly set aside upon learning Nagi is the Dragon God. Her love of Nagi eventually changes her entire demeanor, with her sense of duty returning as she tries harder than the others to please him. Soyogi, Maiden of Wind, is possibly the most childlike of the three, with little to no understanding of others, particularly boys. While Harem had romance magazines and Shizuku had her manga, Soyogi had no means to learn about the opposite sex or the ways of romance. She takes her maiden duties as seriously as Shizuku, but unlike the Maiden of the Sea, Soyogi did allow herself a friendship with another girl her own age, Shizue. A Yandere who had fallen in love with Soyogi, Shizue reacts violently when discovering Nagi alone at Soyogi's house, though she eventually surrenders the Maiden of Wind to the Dragon God after Nagi thanks her for always being there for Soyogi. Though she does change her mind later and proposes a three-way so she can at least share the maiden she loves. Where Umi no Misaki possibly diverges most from the typical harem comedy is the protagonist actually has sex with his harem. Awkward, fumbling sex at first, which makes it all the more endearing and realistic for most of us who remember our first time as equally uncomfortable. Nagi does eventually embrace his status as the Dragon God and acts accordingly. Fan service is also scattered throughout, but it's tasteful and not needlessly over the top, usually consisting of shower scenes or changing clothes, and not the typical panty shots or wind-blown uniform skirts of other comedy manga. Umi no Misaki is a stellar harem manga, and it's sad that it will likely never see an official English translation or anime due to its subject matter. It has been completely scanlated and is available on the usual sites, so feel free to check it out. The author, Ko Fumizuki, does have other manga that have been officially translated, so you can always support his work by purchasing those if you can find them.